Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rathbun. On this podcast, we promote positivity, empathy, and compassion because we believe that kindness is alive and well, and there are people and organizations that you may not have heard of in the world, making their communities a better place for everyone. And we want you to hear their stories. On this podcast, we talk about matters of kindness because kindness matters. Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for taking 30 minutes out of your time, your day or your evening, whenever you're listening to this, to listen to this podcast. We hope that we bring you some value to your 30 minutes, and you will never know how much I appreciate the fact that you choose to listen to this podcast. It's so amazing, and honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And if you find anything in this podcast that brings you value, that is relatable, that uplifts you, feel free to share that with your family, your friends, your coworkers, the guy at the deli, whoever, because, I like to have a lot of people listening, right? I have such a great show for you today. And my guest today, I'll just go into it, right? My guest today is Natalie Miller-Binkley. She is, okay, here we go. This is where I could potentially mess this up. A pediatric cardiothoracic intensive care unit nurse based in California. And that alone would make me want to have her on the show. I mean, and we'll get into that in a minute. But that's not all there is to Natalie, because she is also a healing, holistic, transformational coach for nurses and others. And how cool is that? Welcome to the show, Natalie. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. You did a great job with the mouthful
Oh my
of what
goodness.
my job is. That was perfect.
So I know what cardiothoracic is, right? But I've never put that together with pediatric.
Mm,
Are there a lot
yeah.
of babies or children, small children that need heart surgeries, lung surgeries?
Yeah,
I
so
Go ahead.
it's very different in pediatrics than it is in adults. Adults' hearts are more like you have heart attacks, blocked arteries, and that kind of stuff. So the surgery is a bit different. Whereas in children's, a lot of it is congenital. So it's the heart is not formed properly during their time in utero. Um, and there's a ton of different congenital abnormalities, and it impacts the way that their blood flows. It can impact blood flow to their lungs. So yeah, we see a lot of pretty much every child who comes to us has to have surgery, and then occasionally we'll get someone who was not a congenital heart baby and developed maybe cardiomyopathy from the flu, or maybe has some experience with, I think one time we got a kid who was hit with a baseball to the chest and had a funky
Oh,
rhythm, or there's just some random things that'll cause cardiac stuff. So we've seen a lot of interesting things, but yeah, most of it is able to be diagnosed, luckily, natally when they're in mom's tummy
yeah.
still. So mom and dad have time to prepare for, okay, we're going to have surgery, and what the course looks like. So it's really great that we can
Wow.
lay that out for them so they know what to expect.
That type of work must be simultaneously heartbreaking and satisfying, right? Heartbreaking because here's this kid, and especially for babies, they have no idea, and they probably still don't. By the time
Mhm.
they'll never remember it. more than likely. But yeah. Now, what is the definition of pediatric? How old are you when you get out of pediatric?
I laugh because this is
You get this
something
a lot?
that's changing. No, it's just
Oh,
changing. So I think everyone's, initial thought would be obviously newborn to 18, potentially. Some
oh
might
wow.
say loosely you can go up to 20, early 20s. However, with the
Really?
cardiac side of things, it's dependent on hospital. I work at two different hospitals. One of them accepts up to like 30, I think, maybe 35, and the other one just increased the age to 40.
For
And
pediatric?
well, for cardiac pediatric, like, yeah. So
Okay.
the reason is because these congenital abnormalities that we see, um, adult cardiac or cardiologists or intensive care doctors aren't familiar with the different anatomy of these children because they have surgeries that basically reroute the blood flow through their heart and have different it's called a shunt, but you could think of it
Okay.
like a pipe that
Okay.
basically goes from different places that connects. And so, because they have a special anatomy, and with the medical and surgical advances, they're living a lot longer than they used to. So, we're having to
Okay.
adjust our patient population. And there's been a lot of, talk around this subject because obviously they will have comorbidities or another word for just like other ailments that
Sure.
can progress as they age, and pediatric nurses and doctors might not be as familiar with some of those comorbidities because children don't often have them. So
Yeah.
it's new, this whole taking care of adults thing. Um,
Huh.
but yeah, so I think loosely in the cardiac world, it is a lot older than what you would think pediatrics is. Whereas in not cardiac, I would say it's probably mid 20s, like 24, 25. And
Okay.
that's just with congenital, defects and stuff
Huh.
that kids can
Interesting.
have. Yeah.
That just made me think. My stepson, my wife's son, was born with a bicuspid aortic valve.
Mhm.
And, they said at some point he may need surgery to correct it, right? But he's doing
Mhm.
fine. He's 36. That's the kind of patient you're talking about, though, right?
So his actually could just be a valve replacement, which is not necessarily pediatric.
Okay.
It's more of like the kids who have to have complete anatomy changes,
Oh,
which is it's really difficult to explain without pictures because I'm more of a
fair enough.
visual person.
That's
But
fine. I thought,
yeah,
wow. And you mentioned comorbidities. I learned that
mm,
word during COVID,
yeah,
right?
a
We all
lot of
did,
people I
right?
think did. Yeah.
Yeah, because and being a nurse, it's stressful enough as it is, right? But COVID kind of like took it to a completely different level as far as stress goes. Um, is that is that where you started to have your things? What's yeah, the guy with words can't think of a word. Your feelings like maybe what we need as a coach, what I need as a coach, what my coworkers need as a coach, and I could be that coach.
Mm. Yeah, I think COVID definitely helped that transition along. I don't know if I would have found this route without it. I actually was in the adult ICU during COVID. I wasn't in pediatrics at that
Oh, okay.
time.
Oh my god.
It was after, quote unquote,
Yeah.
COVID ended that I switched to pediatrics back in 2023. So um, it was really hard in the COVID adult ICUs. I, saw things I didn't really ever think I'd see. Um, and going through that from the nurse perspective, but also, I mean, I have a huge heart, which is why I'm a nurse, but seeing what patients go through, being alone, families on FaceTime, patients who were just left there, patients who didn't have COVID and couldn't have family members, and, families dealing with death
Yeah.
over the phone. I mean, there's certain things where, um, yeah, you kind of just watch everyone in this really traumatic state for a prolonged period of time, and um, you realize there's no real fix, right? And I think this is where I transitioned to coaching, because I kind of saw, as we talked about, themes, that kindness and presence, right? And I
Right.
think more than anything, like, as a nurse and a coach, I am very committed to just holding space for people when life gets heavy. And the kindness doesn't have to be big gestures. It's just about being in the moment with people. And as a nurse and coworker, I'm there in difficult times. And it's not about the fixing, which, everyone always is like, oh, what can I do for you? How can I be there? Or I'm sorry you're going through this. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just recognizing, like, your feelings are valid. This is difficult. I don't know what you're going through because I'm not you, but I can be right here alongside you and witness that, emotion, and just be someone present.
Right. Yeah. I was just, we talk about this a lot on this program. And it's like I always say, and I'm going to end up saying this now in 2 episodes in a row, but the kindest thing you can do for another person is not buying them a cup of coffee, or even holding the door open for them or something like that. The kindest thing, my own personal feeling, is just being there and being willing to listen without judgment, without, you know, because there's no shortage in this world of people who will go, well, what you need to do about that, or how you should be handling that is blah, 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 blah. And that's not kind. But being present, being available, being willing to listen to another person's issues, whatever they may be, and but that's the definition of being kind, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah. And it's hard too, because, um, a lot of nurses, and I think a lot of people in general can relate to this. I say nurses because that's what I relate to the most, being a nurse myself, are high functioning. You have all these things that you need to do. Your job is, critical. People are relying on you left and right. You're at the cornerstone of all things happening with the patient. The doctors come to you, the physical therapists come to you, occupational therapists come to you, family comes to you. Everyone's coming to you and through you. And so you're managing a lot. They're very high. I said this already, I think high functioning, but, and even when we're running on empty, right? Like, we put aside everything. I think parents could probably relate to this, anyone
Right.
who's a mom or dad, or caretaker of someone else in their family, whether it's a parent or a child. Um, and, you run on empty, and it isn't the advice or motivation that you need in that moment of, like, feeling overwhelmed. It's actually just a moment to breathe and to be witnessed in that chaos, and to feel safe in your body again.
Yeah.
And being someone who can, like, help co-regulate that with other people and be like that calm presence, like making sure I'm monitoring my breathing and my body language, and helping people realize that it is a safe space. I think that's the real gift, like we're talking about, is just being present and helps them realize, they're not broken and they're not, needing to be fixed because they feel this inner sense of like overwhelm and burnout. They just need a moment to breathe and be witnessed that they are, experiencing this, because it doesn't feel the same when you do it alone. We're meant to be social people.
You're absolutely right. And yeah, I think maybe doing it alone probably has its own sets of issues. When you're coaching now,
Mhm.
I and when I think of coaches or coaching, I think of somebody who's, and this is probably not right. So if there's anybody else that feels this way, let this be a correction for you. But they do a lot of talking. And they say, okay, you need to do this and this and this and this. Try this, not that. But it's not all like that, is it?
No, and it's so interesting because sometimes I really struggle with the word coach because I don't personally feel like it aligns with what I offer. Um, and I mean, I'm a big runner. So, I would love to hire a running coach. You would love to hire a health coach to like lose weight and give you all this advice and stuff. And, do this, do that. And when you think of a coach in sports, they're doing all the same thing, telling you what to do. Um, but for me, my coaching is
Mhm.
being that witness first and foremost. It is a collaboration with my client. I just am there to listen and what they think is correct. Because to be honest, we're all whole, we're all perfectly whole and complete the way we are. I think getting back to ourselves and having that space to explore that is really important. Um, and you might wonder why people fail when they do go through programs of, health and fitness training. And it's because, was that person really working with the person they're coaching to find something that aligns with what works in their life, right? And I think for me, I have a lot of trust in my clients, that they know the answers. We all know the answers to our own issues. You might need a little help getting there. You might need a little, someone to be your cheerleader, which is something I love calling myself, everyone's cheerleader.
Nice.
Um, Remembering your voice and building that confidence back up. So I think, yeah, a witness, a cheerleader. I don't typically tell people like what to do. We shape it together, and it's something we build. Um, and I think that comes from my background. I think as a nurse, and transforming into a coach. Having that.
Right. Now you refer to yourself as a healing slash holistic
Mhm.
slash transformational coach. Do those things fit neatly together, or are they three separate um, practices? That's not what I wanted to say, but that's the only word that comes to my head.
Yeah, I think I talk about all of them because words hit differently with different people.
Okay.
I think healing at its root, you think about healthcare is what I think about is
Sure.
healing. Like you're sick, you need healed. Um, as a coach, I don't utilize my nursing license. I'm not giving any medical advice under my coaching, um, like hat, we'll call it. When I have my coaching hat on, it's no medical
Right.
advice. It's purely just me being there. Holistic is something I would like to see in healthcare, because this is me taking all sides of the person. As nurses, we might be nurses in by trade, and I think it's very American as well to, you ask someone, "Oh, what do you do?" or "Who are you?" and they say, "Oh, I'm an investor," or I'm an engineer, and we define ourselves by our jobs.
Hmm.
And something I'd like to bring back is that holistic nature of it, is like more, who are you on a deeper sense of being?
Ooh.
What makes you up? Not just like that you're a daughter, or, a father, or a son, or a husband, or a friend, but that you're confident, that you enjoy doing, traveling or running, or what makes you the person you are. And holistic coaching is so important to me because every person, sorry, has different aspects that make up who we are. And
Sure.
so I try to take into account, our social health. Are we being proactive in the community? Are we involved? Do we have friends? Do we have family that we can rely on? Financial health, emotional health, um, and other, just the multifaceted areas of our lives, right? And then
Sure.
transformational, I just feel like being with someone who is your witness and cheerleader, it's hard to not be transformed in that time. I've had many people
You would hope.
um,
Yeah.
say that it's just so nice to have the space. They don't realize how much they need it until they have it. And then they're like, God, I just needed that 60 minutes to just like talk and be listened to, and like actively listening,
Yeah.
is something so big. So,
Are resources available for somebody like you, for the nurses? I mean, I'm sure there's a mental health department that is available to nurses, or to all hospital staff, really. I'm sure, but yeah, that sounds like maybe each hospital should have like a little room where you can just go in and decompress for, I don't know. That's because, and nurses have their own unique set of um, um, I don't want to say issues, but oh look, I said it, even though I said I didn't want to say it. But I mean, if you're coaching a nurse, the average person on the street is not going to come into you and go. They're not going to have the same needs. Needs. There's a word I was looking
mm,
for, that a nurse might have, right?
mm. Um, well, I'll go
Or
back to every hospital should have a little nice, like, detox room kind of thing, because that would be great.
detox.
Um,
Yeah, I like it.
there are some hospitals that do have that. I did travel nursing for a bit, and I did it. Some places have a little massage chair in the break room or something like that. But um, yeah, you would think that there would be resources for nurses, and I think that's something that post COVID is we're building awareness around it,
Okay.
because it didn't used to be like that. Um, Very few and far between hospitals offer resources for people, and I will say majority of hospitals that do offer these resources for nurses are the large university hospitals that have um, more funding than, say, like the smaller hospitals.
It all comes
So
down to funding, doesn't it?
yeah, so, and we're, slowly but surely, there's other nurses who are like me that have gone through coaching training and have been building out programs in their own hospitals and spreading awareness. So it's coming. It's just not as fast as obviously it would be,
Yeah.
liked to be
Sure.
implemented. But, and then back to the nurses have our own set of uh, difficulties, or,
Needs. I like the
needs
word needs.
that average people might not have.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Because I don't want to discount anyone else's um, experience, right?
Sure.
So I think having been a nurse, working bedside. I see people coming in, and you just never know the life struggles that everyone has. So I don't want to say that um, people don't have, I think everyone could benefit from something like the type of space that I can offer. But I also think where you're correct in saying like nurses have maybe a unique set of
There you go.
needs that need, yeah, and it's very specific.
Yeah.
A lot of nurses I talk to are like, oh yeah, like therapy is great, and I've done therapy, and therapy has its place. Um, but I think this is where the nurse having someone who is also a nurse to talk to is honestly a huge game changer
Absolutely.
because I relate to the 12-hour shifts, 13-hour shifts, the overtime, the 16-hour shifts when you stay over. I relate to working night shift. I relate to the, meal prep. I relate to not being able to have a water bottle all day. I relate to not being able to go to the bathroom. Like there's certain things where it's like nurses just get other nurses, and you have to have someone like that who understands the whole part of being a nurse
Sure.
at the bedside at the
We need to back
hospital.
up. You
So
can't have a water bottle all day?
uh, we have hydration stations set up in the unit, which is very common. So your water sits at the hydration station. If you have a busy day and your
You never
water
get
is not
there.
near you, you never drink the water. You never go to the bathroom. Um, I'm spoiled being in California. The breaks that I get are mandated and there's like laws, I'm pretty sure. But
Okay.
when I worked back east, I mean, you would go the whole shift with, your 30-minute break would be at your desk overnight. Um,
Charting or something.
yeah, yeah, eating bites in
Oh,
between. So it's crazy. Yeah,
that blew me away when I heard you say that. I was like, wait, what?
yeah, yeah.
And it's, I mean, I know here in Minnesota, one of our nurses' unions just threatened to strike because a lot
Mm.
of it these days is staffing, isn't it? That's a huge sticking point for nurses, right? Or
Yeah,
lack
I
of
would say
staffing.
patient ratios is where that stems from, mainly, is safe patient ratios, which ends up being a staffing issue. Um, but the safe ratios is
Yeah.
what's important because we want to make sure that we, you know, have the time to take care of the patients the way that they deserve to be taken care of. And, you know, I mean, I don't want to say everyone's had an experience in a hospital because I realize how not everyone has had an experience in a hospital. It's just my day to day. But, um, it's really hard to be in the hospital or have a family member in the hospital and think that you're not being seen or not being taken care of. And as a nurse on the other side, realizing like, when am I supposed to have time to like really truly make a difference if I have
Yeah.
like on a med surge floor, which is just like the regular units, not ICU,
Okay.
they might have like 8 patients, 7 or 8 patients. And at that point, you've got 7 or 8 patients that you have 8 o'clock meds, 9 o'clock meds, 10 o'clock meds. And then by the time you finish that med pass, then you're starting your noon med pass. And then after that, you're starting your dinner med pass. And when are you finding
So you're just
charting?
spending your
And
entire shift handing out meds.
yeah, and it is really hard because as someone who does have a lot of heart and like loves being a nurse, um, you know, I want to be there for people. And again, this is why going into coaching kind of healed my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
And I can be that for other nurses. But yeah, the safe patient ratios, one day it would be great if this was a national thing, but maybe one day we'll get there.
So what would be ideal? Like 2 to 3 patients per nurse? Would that is
Um,
that too low or
I mean,
and of
that would
course
be
it
great,
depends on what
but
unit you're on, right?
It does, yeah. So
Okay.
I think med surge maximum would be great with five. I would say five sometimes is even hard, but
Okay.
I think I'm not sure in California what the maximum. I know we're the only state in the country with patient ratios right now. And
And
I
those are
think
mandated by
it's,
law.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's five. It might be six, but I think it's five. And then
Okay.
if you're in like a step down unit, which is a little bit more critical than med surge, but not quite ICU, I think it's three to four. And then ICU is one patient or two patients if they're
Wow.
not critical. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, my poor nurses. I told you that story. I owe nurses so much because I was the patient from hell when I had my bypass. I'm pretty sure they wanted me to like leave, like get him out of here. We put that alarm on that chair for a reason, sir. I didn't realize what color slippers I had on. If I had to go, I had to go. I'm
Mhm.
just saying. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I love your focus on being present in the work that you do because honestly, that is kindness in action, right? Um, and I really appreciate the work that you do. I'm sure your fellow nurses do as well, but um, it's everything that this show is about. It's about people just taking care of other people. And you do that as a nurse and you do that as a coach. And so you're a double threat.
I also wanted to add, I think something important on the topic of like healing and being present, um, you know, and back to coaching and making progress with clients. I think the amazing thing about being present and allowing people to process and just witnessing it can help regulate their nervous system. And I don't think we all realize how dysregulated our nervous systems are just on a daily basis. And so,
Really?
how can you expect someone to heal with a dysregulated nervous system? Um, and again, that's why I think my coaching is so different, is because I allow them the space to process first. And then once we are through the processing of all the, overwhelm and burnout, then we can finally work to regulate your nervous system, which allows like a deeper and more extensive like progress through the healing. Like it just is different than the band-aid that we put on it with other things. And when you can heal from your nervous system, I mean, it's life changing. That'll be so healing for years to come when you work from that inner peace.
Uh, bear with me. What does a
Mhm.
deregulated nervous system look like?
It can be people thinking that they have ADD, ADHD, overwhelmed, constantly thinking about a to do list, fidgeting,
Okay.
not being able to sit still, high heart rate, high blood pressure, headaches, and as healthcare, right? We're always like,
Right.
oh, you might have this, you might have that, you might have this, or, take a medicine, and that's kind of where I come back to the holistic side is when we're overstimulated, right? From media, just sound. I mean, I've got construction and, we're on social media and all these things that we feel like we have to do.
Yeah.
Um, you constantly feel behind. You feel like you're falling behind or you're not doing enough. Um, and
There's
it's,
that. You're not
I mean,
wrong.
I just think everyone can relate to that feeling, right? Of just like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to do this, or I should catch up with this person, and they start, this thought process in your brain, and then you're like, oh, I want a moment to breathe. And then our moment to breathe is sitting on the couch watching TV or,
Yeah.
scrolling on our phone. Yeah. Sometimes even reading a book, like that's still stimulation. Your mind is still being activated. And um, so I think a dysregulated nervous system can be so much, right? I mean,
Okay.
it could be chest pain, it can be upset stomach, headaches. And so it's really connecting back with your body, um, and healing that through, once you have to be in a space to be ready for that, right? Like I can't just
Yeah.
take someone and be like, you have a dysregulated nervous system. Let's get to work on that. Um, and that's where the kindness and presence starts, right? Is I'm starting with just being here and a witness. And then after that, and after they've processed what they need to through space and presence and time, then we can move into, okay, what do we need to heal on like a deeper level where we can rewire our nervous system and not get so overactivated about little things or put our brain back into like that, to-do list mode.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and it takes time. It's not something that's just like a one and done fix. But the thing
Oh,
is the more we work at it, the easier you recognize it and the faster you can flip back into a regulation
as with
state.
anything, right? The more you practice
Mm,
it, the better you get at it. That's
yeah.
so. Are you saying that I wouldn't need my amlodipine? Amlodipine?
The amlodipine.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I,
No medical
that's a
advice.
new one for me. That's just within like the last couple of years. I'm like, you say what? I have
Yeah.
never had high blood pressure before in my life. It's always perfect, 120/80 every single time. And then like 2 years ago, my cardiologist is like, I think you might have high blood pressure. And for those of you listening at home, I just rolled my eyes and mouthed the word whatever. No, thank you so much for taking the time, Natalie. This has been really enlightening, and you have a coaching website or no?
I do. Yes, I do.
That link will be in our show notes. I don't think I've gotten it from you yet, but we'll get it afterwards. And yeah, if you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed out to the max, and this is a virtual world now, right? So you could
Mhm.
treat anybody anywhere, correct?
Yeah, I do mostly virtual. I've been
Okay.
working on building out communities, so I just love surrounding myself with people.
And
So
especially if
I
you're
do
a
a lot of,
nurse,
yes, if you're a
highly
nurse, I
recommend
have
Natalie.
a free Facebook group where I do monthly group calls every month.
I'm going to need all those links. We'll get
Yeah,
them after this
I
one.
can send them to you. Yeah.
We'll get them. Thank you so much for taking the time and speaking to me for a little bit here. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate what you do.
Oh, this has been so amazing, Mike. Thank you for having me on. I've had so much fun talking to you and getting to know you through this.
Take care, and we will talk again soon. I want to thank you for taking this time to listen to this episode with my guest, Natalie Miller Binkley. I hope that you are able to take something positive from the 30-40 minutes that you spent here with us today, and I hope that you're inspired or motivated or moved in some way. If you experienced any of those positive feelings, please consider sharing this podcast with your friends and family. I'm also striving to offer you a better podcast. So if you have something that you like about the show, something that you hate about the show, something in between, feel free to drop me an email, mike@thekindnessmatterspodcast.com, or in the comments on the platform that you listen to the podcast on. Whatever, reach out and let me know how you think I'm doing. I would really love that. And make sure to follow us on all of our socials as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, you name it, we're there. Go look us up, the Kindness Matters podcast, and make sure to follow or subscribe. This podcast is part of the Mayday Media Network. Maybe you have an idea for a podcast and you need some production assistance, or you already have a podcast and you're looking for a supportive network to join. Check out MaydayMediaNetwork.com and make sure to check out their many different shows like Afrocentric, Spoil My Movie, Generation Mixtape, In a Pickle Radio Show, Wake Up and Dream with D'Anthony Palin, Stacks O'Packs, and The Time Pals. We will be back again next week with a new episode, and we would be honored if you would join us. You've been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rathbun. Have a fantastic week.